In this video, I'm going to show you how to use CalcImage to produce quantitative concentration maps from WDS intensity maps. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have a probe for EPMA sample setup that has standards that you've collected with the same setup that you used for your maps, and that will allow PFE to calculate the full quantification for each pixel of the map, including standardization, interference corrections, background subtractions, etc. In this case, we used mean atomic number backgrounds. If you're not familiar with that, there's another video on this channel explaining that. But mean atomic number backgrounds are going to allow us to subtract a background out that is based on an estimation of the background intensity, which is based on the fit of standards with different mean atomic numbers and no analytes of interest. So once we've collected all of our standard data and have a sample setup, in this case, this is my mapping setup, we can then go to CalcImage and begin the processing. So after we've collected our maps, we need to go to CalcImage and we'll start with Project, Create New Project Wizard. And this is going to lead us through the process for quantifying these maps. So the first thing is we need to select our probe for EPMA database that has our standard information and our sample setups. In that case for me, it's this one. So I'm going to open that. Next, we have to select a sample setup that CalcImage is going to use to process the maps. So I hit OK. It'll give you a list of all the samples you've run in that database. And in this case, it's going to be mapping setup. It's got all of my elements there. We're going to hit OK. And now we need to select our maps. So CalcImage is pretty smart here, so it uses this number to determine what maps are what. So you just need to pick one map from each pass. So this was 2 passes of mapping. So I've got the first map set and the second map set. So I'll pick one of these and hit open. And then I will pick one of these and hit open. And once it knows you've picked one, it will grab all the others with the same map number. And when you've picked both, you can now hit cancel and it will load your maps into CalcImage. Now these are ginormous maps, so it's going to take a second here to pull them in. And once it pulls them all in, we'll go through the next steps. While it's doing that, I do want to make sure that in this setup, make sure that you have everything selected the way you want. So that includes standard assignments, your elements the same, any interferences you're going to do on those elements, and any conditions you're going to change there, and calculation options. You can change this later in CalcImage, but it's best to do it here if you can. Okay, so it looks like CalcImage is done, so it's pulled in all of my maps for my feldspar. I've got barium on 4 channels here. I've got all of the major elements as well. At this point, we've pulled in all of our maps and we're ready to tell CalcImage what we want to do to them. So now we're going to go to Project, Specify Quantitative Parameters. That's going to bring up this dialog, which should look pretty familiar. This is going to have a lot of similar options to what the probe for EPMA database has. So here's your calculation options. You can choose stoichiometric, elemental, oxides, etc., element by difference. Do note that if you change something in here, it will alter the sample setup that you chose. So that's mapping setup all. So if I was to change this to elemental and hit OK, it will update it both here and in the probe for EPMA database. So just be aware of that. Here's where you're going to select what kind of output you want. So we could do atomic, oxide, we could do detection limits, analytical sensitivity. I like to always calculate a totals image just so you can get a quick idea of how it looks and whether or not you've got decent analyses. Here's where you could do specified concentrations. Again, almost all of this is available to you in probe for EPMA as well in the setup. So once we've done that, we've selected what we want to output here. We're going to hit OK. And the last step is going to be to go into Project, Output Sample Parameters. And what this is going to do is it's going to run a quick test on a single pixel and calculate all of the concentrations and all of the interferences, etc., that you have enabled. And it's going to tell you if that went OK And for that, we need to slip over here to this CalcImage log window. And you can see down here at the bottom, no problematic situations have occurred. So if you do have a problem in your setup, if you've got an element that's not there, if you've made some mistake, this will give you an idea before you try and calculate the entire map. And at this point, we are ready to calculate all of the pixels for the map. So I'm going to minimize the log window. You can close the log window or minimize it here. It will actually speed up the calculation if you close it, but I'm going to leave it open because I want to show you what it shows. At this point, we go to Project, Calculate Quantitative Images. It's going to say, are you sure you want to do that? And we're going to hit OK and let it go. This is just a warning about the log window, as I mentioned. Again, it will run faster if it's not displaying to the log window. So I'm going to hit OK, and now it's going to begin calculating. So it's going to load everything, pull up its standards, and now it shows you the timing remaining. And again, this is a ginormous map that I collected over several days, and it's 617,500 pixels. So it's kind of interesting to watch here as this counter ticks up. Each one of those is essentially the same quantification strategy as you would on a single spot analysis. So in a way, we are calculating 617,500 spot analyses. Looks like it's going to take about an hour left. In the log window, you can see each pixel being calculated, so you can kind of watch what's going on as it goes through. It also gives the time remaining here as well. But if you're trying to go as fast as possible, the best bet here is to close that window, and it will speed up this processing time a little bit. If you are calculating a lot of maps at this point, it might be a good idea to go ahead and minimize this window. You can come in, open another copy, another instance of CalcImage, and while it's calculating one, you can set up the next one. So same thing, we would start with project, create new project wizard, hit OK, go to our probe for EPMA setup that has all of our mapping parameters in it, and select our setup, hit OK. Now we would go find our maps. So in this case, I'll just start the same map over. Select that. When I'm ready, I hit cancel. It will load up the maps. And just as before, we're going to go through and specify quantitative parameters, output sample parameters, and finally calculate maps. So hopefully that will help you set up and calculate quantitative concentration maps based on mean atomic number samples and WDS intensity maps.